and welcome to the What the What podcast. It's the podcast where we tell you what's nerdy, what's popping with culture, what's giving us all the nostalgic feels, and what's there to geek out about, past, present, and future. It's all the what's in one place. That's Eric Creech. We have Kyle Whitley, and I'm Ashby Brame.
It's a new day. Yes, it is.
Woohoo! Yes. That's
Sorry, I've been listening to the New Day podcast a lot lately.
Okay.
And so,
Oh, What the What fans! Don't you dare be sour! Clap for your three hosts for the podcast and feel the power!
baby.
It's a new day. Yes, it is.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that was the next part after that on the
Yes.
podcast. They do it weird on their podcast.
Do they?
Where like they change it up and get like more emotional sounding.
I love Ashby's face. Which was like, what are they talking about?
It's a new
I
day.
know it says random interlude filled with pointless conversation, but I
Let
didn't
me tell
mean
you,
this random.
You guys really deliver on that every week solidly.
Pointless and
I
random.
appreciate it.
That's how my brain works.
And I always just look like I'm on The Office. Like,
I'm just really, you're over here jimmying the camera. I'm really glad that he did something. I'm going to keep dropping this. I'm really glad he did it because my head went immediately to doing another Hamilton song. And I was like, I know we said no more
Don't
Hamilton.
do anything
no
but
more
Hamilton.
But so I'm just sitting
and then
there.
your brain was like, do Hamilton.
Yes.
It's
like
New
dark-
Day.
like
He's
dark-
not screaming. Are we singing Hamilton?
like
It's no,
Sith leader
something different.
Kermit's like, Hamilton.
Yeah.
My name is Alexander
That's
Hamilton.
right. Sing it again.
Yes, cool. Thanks for joining us. Whether all you've got is a cheap trick or cheesy one-liner, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, rate and review us 5 stars. That was a weird little sound.
So your microphone's
spike.
being funny this time.
That is funny. Maybe we need to get a new board. Please also follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at What the What Media.
All one word.
And find us on Twitter at WTW_media. Please share with your friends if you enjoyed today's episode or one of the 56 other What the What podcast episodes that we have available in the archives. Last week on the podcast, we discussed the 1-year journey for this podcast and the goals the three of us have for the year to come. On today's episode, wow, we are taking a
Deep dive.
into the 2013 film Iron Man 3. Here is your spoiler warning for today's episode. While Iron Man 3 is our primary focus.
Tomato.
Yeah.
Add in,
Yeah.
as that other word was up there.
We may be discussing any and all things related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including Marvel television shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, tie-in comics, and any of the other 22 MCU films, taking the entire saga into account. So if you aren't sure about the difference between War Machine and the Iron Patriot, maybe check out this movie first. And if you need it, it happens to be the only MCU film that Kyle owns on DVD.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm going to adjust this real quick. Okay.
Do I need to like tell you now why I only have that one?
If you want to.
It's not by choice. It's not like it was my favorite, and I was like, I need to own this. I think this
He
is,
lies. It was absolutely his favorite. This
That's
is
definitely
this
why.
is definitely in his top 5.
This is the only Marvel movie I think that I did not see in theaters. And so we were going on our anniversary trip to a cabin that my cousins own in the mountains. And they told us before, and they're like, we don't have any cable out here, no Wi-Fi. Like, you're out in the, like, nowhere, which is awesome, and it's great.
Right.
Like, we do have, like, a DVD player and, like, a projector to project it on the wall, like, to bring a movie or whatever. So this just happened to have come out on movie at the time or on DVD, so we bought it and picked it up. And I don't think we've ever gotten any of the other ones, especially at this point. Like, so much has been on.
Why would you?
Well, yeah, between, like, Netflix and everywhere else that they've been on. We never-
Unless you're a completionist. What is happening with my mic? My
I don't know.
goodness.
You passed it on to you tonight.
I've
know.
sabotaged both of you in order to finally take over.
Yeah, it's working.
Yep.
I mean, keep it up if that's what you're doing.
Don't touch
don't let us stop you.
I've noticed when you touch the microphone is when it starts, so make sure to stop touching.
Hello. Okay.
As a record or recording studio guy once told me, you wouldn't beat your dog, so don't beat your mic.
Okay, we'll leave that there then.
Okay.
All right.
Good. Cool.
So,
Yes, cool. So, you know who I am. You don't know where I am, and you'll never see me coming.
You got to do it like the Mandarin. You'll never see me coming.
You'll never see me. Wait, let me start over.
Okay, do it over again.
You know who I am. You don't know where I am. You'll never see me coming.
Hey, that was actually really
That
good.
was very impressive.
Fantastic.
Great.
He says he
Good
has
to know.
Okay.
If I need to be a terrorist, I can do it.
Good to know.
Put
Good
it
to
on,
know.
put it on your
honestly.
resume. I
I
got
will
a
probably never do it.
potential
Hopefully
future as a
never do that.
terrorist.
But
Probably.
I have-
Probably,
I'll make
maybe,
the note.
definitely not.
Definitely,
It's like-
maybe. Yeah.
I know QuickBooks. I have a graphic design degree. I also have a terrorist voice. I'll make sure to note that. I haven't updated it since college, but I'll make sure to update my resume.
Go ahead and update that thing now.
That's important.
You put that under skills.
Skills,
Yeah.
terrorist voice.
Definitely.
Okay. I'm glad to know. That's where that belongs.
Okay.
So anyway,
I have an empty bottle in case I need it. Just
Wow.
this is a place to offer up a brief refresher on what actually happened in Avengers 2012. Because
I didn't update that part either.
in case you didn't listen to our previous podcast on Avengers from 2012, Ashley's going to recap the entire podcast.
Can you tell that how much work we put into this script?
It's good though. Funny thing, funny moment.
Oh, man.
So let's try it one more time.
Take two.
This is a place to offer up a brief refresher on what actually happened in Iron Man 3 film. Where film doesn't even...
In the
Iron Man 3.
Man 3 film.
So, when you're ready, Ashby, take a breath. I'll let you catch your breath again. Recap this movie in the next 131 seconds.
Okay, so here's the thing.
You ready?
I wrote this last night, and I haven't done a cold run through. So this is gonna be a hot mess.
You've got this.
It's also gonna be super long, but I'm ready.
We got this.
All right.
10 minutes will cut you off.
Okay.
On mark.
Okay.
Ready.
Get set.
Set. Go.
This feel-good, fun-for-the-whole-family Christmas movie opens with Tony narrating a story about how we create our own demons. In a flashback to New Year's Eve, Tony meets a botanical scientist named Maya Hansen in Bern, Switzerland, and arrogantly avoids crippled, nerdy scientist Aldrich Killian, by honestly being sort of a jerk. But let's not forget, this is 1999 Tony Stark. We forgive him. In December 2012, it has been quite some time after the events of New York City and the Avengers Initiative, and a haunted Tony Stark has obsessively built several Iron Man suits in his mansion. Tony works on a new model, the Mark 42, which is modular. All the suit pieces fly to him and recombine. The Mandarin hijacks American Airwaves and makes his debut by taking credit for the bombing of a U.S. military station in Kuwait. The president response is to take the Mach 8 suit worn by Colonel James Rhodes, formerly known as War Machine, and have it repainted, rebranded, and reintroduced as the Iron Patriot. So like if Iron Man and Captain America had a love child. Tony later asks Rhodes in a restaurant what's really going on with the Mandarin. And then he is confronted by a group of kids who want his autograph. The boy asks how Tony was able to escape the wormhole in New York, causing him to have a panic attack. Back at Stark Industries, Pepper Potts meets with Aldrich Killian, who has improved his condition. Aldrich wants Stark Industries backing his think tank called Advanced Ideas Mechanics, or AIM. Pepper declines. Pepper drives home, and Tony has a huge stuffed bunny for her as her Christmas gift. That night while asleep, Tony experiences a PTSD-induced trauma dream about what happened in New York. They're then startled when one of the new prototype Iron Man suits is awakened and makes its way to the bedroom, attacking Pepper. Tony then immediately dismantles it. Happy follows one of Killian's men, Eric Savin, to the Grauman's Chinese Theater. Savin gives another man, Jack Taggart, a briefcase. Taggart overheats and explodes, leaving behind only his old dog tags. Happy is severely injured while Savin walks away. Tony visits the hospital to check on Happy and to make sure that all of the hospital employees were wearing badges while in Happy's room, and to make sure that the TV is playing Downton Abbey. Tony Stark does have a heart. A frustrated Tony issues his threat to the Mandarin, saying that he just died, and gives him his home address on TV. While at home, Tony has Jarvis bring up a hologram diagram of the Grauman's Chinese Theater, but he's interrupted by a visitor who turns out to be not the Mandarin, but Dr. Maya Hansen, who believes Tony is in danger. A freaked out Pepper is arguing with Tony, and just as that's happening, the house is attacked. Pepper and Maya make it out. Tony manages to destroy 2 of the helicopters, but down on power, he cannot fly. The house crumbles into the sea, taking Tony with it. The suit regains some power and flies off unseen. Sometime later, Tony awakens in the suit 5 miles outside of Rose Hill, Tennessee. Tony then drags the Mach 42 to a seemingly empty house nearby. Inside, he immediately begins to work on repairing the suit, but the house isn't empty. It's actually occupied by a lonely 10-year-old kid named Harley Keener. Teaming with Harley, Tony investigates the remains of the Mandarin S suicide bombing. One of Killian's agents, Ellen Brandt, shows up and cuffs Tony, but he manages to escape the bar, only to be cornered by Savin, who tries to take Harley hostage, but Harley overpowers him, allowing Tony to grab his car keys and escape. Tony drives to a nearby beauty pageant and sneaks into one of the camera crew vans so he can research the data on the documents he's found. Turns out that the bombs are the work of soldiers from the Extremist program. However, the program has a flaw. If a user's body cannot properly metabolize Extremis, the body heats to an extreme temperature and explodes. Rose tracks the Mandarin's IP address and is led to a sweatshop in the Middle East, but it turns out to be a trap. Tony infiltrates the Mandarin's Miami headquarters using a variety of homemade weapons. Inside, he discovers that the Mandarin is actually a flighty British actor named Trevor Slattery.
The best twist ever.
Yes. Tony is captured by some of Killian's henchmen, and Maya reveals she was working with Killian all along. Aldrich arrives and reveals he has kidnapped Pepper and subjected her to the extremist injection, intending to use her as leverage to gain Tony's aid in fixing extremist's flaws. Aldrich then shoots and kills Maya. Tony escapes by summoning the Mark 42 all the way from Tennessee piece by piece and reunites with Rhodes on the estate, discovering that Aldrich intends to attack President Ellis aboard Air Force One. Savin boards the president's plane wearing the Iron Patriot suit and takes the president. He then blows holes in the airliner body and survivors fall out. Iron Man kills Savin and manages to rescue the fallen people by using a small electrical current to hold them all together. Tony and Rhodes trace Aldrich to an impounded oil drill platform where Aldrich intends to kill Ellis on live television. Tony has Jarvis enact the house party protocol, which unleashes a massive army of Iron Man suits. Before Tony can save her, a container crane rig collapses around them and Pepper falls 200 feet to her apparent death. Tony is forced into confronting Aldrich using several suits and finally traps him in the 42 suit that self-destructs. But a glowing Aldrich survives and staggers towards a defenseless Stark. Pepper shows up, having survived the fall, and finishes off the weakened Aldrich. After the battle, Tony orders Jarvis to implement Clean Slate Protocol, which destroys each remaining Iron Man suit promptly, as a sign of his intention to devote more time to Pepper. Tony undergoes surgery to remove the shrapnel embedded near his heart, eliminating his need for the chest piece to control it. He pitches his obsolete chest arc reactor into the sea, muses he will always be Iron Man, even without his armor. The end.
Great job.
Great job.
I started to I had to cough, so you probably heard me in the background, but I was trying
We
to hold
did.
it. But then I'm starting to get out of breath listening because I was like, oh my God, what if she had to cough? She couldn't do this. And all of a sudden, I finally just had to cough. I was like, over here choking because I'm trying not to. But
Oh, man.
great job anyway.
Great job.
Appreciate
great
it.
Job, great job. So, we have 10 questions. I'm going to rename this section. It's listed as general and specific thoughts.
General and specific thoughts.
Yes.
The general.
We're just going to rename it 10 questions.
Or it could be the 10 rings.
Yeah, the 10 rings, yeah. Do you like this film?
Yes.
My answer was yes. Yes, I do.
Mine was...
Not one of my favorites. I'm still
Mine was...
talking, but I enjoyed it.
Is it in your top 10?
That's a different
That's
question.
a different question. My answer was The Iron Man series has never been my favorite. I like Iron Man and Stark better when he's getting to play off the other Avengers.
That's fair. But I have a lot of things that I feel like redeem this movie for me specifically. And so it's actually one of my favorite Iron Mans.
Okay. What are some of your favorite scenes?
You're looking at me, so I'll go.
I mean, I'm just going down the line here.
Yeah.
Going on the line. Not to jump to the end of the movie, but it was really cool to see all of the suits come in together and just to see how that happened. I really don't think I watched that movie any other time than the one time we watched it on our, it wasn't a honeymoon, but our trip. And so watching it again was like watching an entirely new movie again for me. And that was the one thing I knew ahead of time was all the suits come at some point. I don't remember how, I don't remember why. But just to see that he had been building all of those all along. And I was watching something, I don't know, YouTube trying to get ready for this. And whenever he's finished building the one suit and it's kind of going underground, if you take the 2 seconds to look, you see underneath there's already this giant thing. That's where all the suits already are, where he's just been storing them away. I didn't notice it the first time, but then actually whenever drawing my attention to it, you start noticing all those are just hanging out there. So, I don't know. I enjoy that. I thought it was just cool to see. It's not just 40 or 50 or however many just plain old Iron Man, but just how each one had its own characteristic and how that worked. How about somebody else? Ashby.
I really enjoyed the sort of Tony and Rhodey, buddy cop movie-esque parts of this movie. It was nice to see them get to do that. I think that there are a lot of things that I notice because I've been in fandom for so long when I go back and watch that I forget aren't just a part of fandom, like how wonderful and comedic and supportive Tony and Rhodey's relationship and their friendship is. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'm like, oh, well, that's only in fan fiction. But it is nice when they get time for that to be on the screen, you know, for them to be friends. There's a whole backstory in the fandom about, and I don't know where it comes from. It might come from the comics about them meeting at MIT and being college roommates and then, you know, going separate ways, but also remaining friends. And so that's where their friendship stems from. So that was just really interesting to actually, get some screen time this time around instead of, and I feel like the other Iron Man movies where Rhodey just shows up to kind of like scold him as, the military liaison.
Look,
and
I'm
then,
here, deal with it.
Right, exactly. And then also the Barrel of Monkeys bit where he saves all the people falling out of the plane is super cool.
That was
one of my favorite parts.
Absolutely.
I like how they thought about it too, good enough to say like everybody was just strong enough holding hands. Where he like, they threw in the fact of like I'm going to send an electrical like current through your hand. So you were not able to let go, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So they took care of that, so you couldn't come back later and just be like, "Well, what if one person got sweaty hands?"
That's not possible, right? Yeah.
So to think it through that far and not just throw something in the movie.
Which actually ties into one of the things I threw into this section, which was like daily affirmation about how stupid smart Tony Stark is. Say it with me. He solves things drunk and in his sleep and calculates things at like a lightning fast pace. And I just love any scene that shows that basically like a reminder that, hey, this guy's a genius.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
like literal.
He invented time travel in an afternoon.
Right. Yes. In between giving his child popsicles.
Yes, and washing the dishes.
Right.
I mean,
yes.
So yeah, definitely a genius. My favorite scenes were the Barrel of Monkey scene, obviously, and then just the end of the movie, Pepper, kind of saving the day. Like just I mean, we'll get into that a little more, but
there was one more that I like, and you talk about Pepper and made me think about it, but whenever they're bombing his house and how we've not seen it before. We've seen now how the suit can come to him, but how he thought ahead as well for Pepper. Like, the house is getting bombed, throw it on her. Like first, and you see that little bit of growth already in him that's not just all about himself. Like, so you did a great job in the last movie, or whenever we were talking about who won the movie, and you went into great detail about Iron Man. And it made me think further that in watching this movie, knowing it's coming right out of that movie, to think so much more about how has he grown? Is he all about himself still?
Right. So are you changing your vote from Samuel
No, not last time.
Nick Fury to
No.
It just made me think
or,
for future
a post, whatever vote here for.
No, it's just, Samuel Jackson wasn't in this movie, so I can't vote for him this time.
That's fine.
But Happy was dressed like John Travolta from Pulp Fiction, so
that's true.
That's close enough.
Favorite quotes, and I'll go here. This is a favorite of mine because I'm just now realizing like the significance of this quote in our lives. So, for years, we still do music at our church, me and Kyle, and we had a young man who was working sound named Tanner. And we would ask him, to make us a sandwich. Where's my sandwich? Where's my sandwich? When rewatching this movie, I realized that, Stark's talking to Harley Keener, and he's like, here's what I need. A laptop, digital watch, cell phone, the pneumatic actuator from your bazooka over there, a map of a town, a big spring, and a tuna fish sandwich. And then later on at the end of that scene, you know what keeps going through my head? Where's my sandwich? And we would keep asking Tanner, like, where's my sandwich? And I did not realize, I'm assuming that's where Rickie kind of got it, because he's a big Iron Man fan. So I'm wondering if that's where he got that quote from.
Part of me doesn't want to ask him, though. Part of me just wants to assume that's where he got it from, versus asking him and then him being like, what are you talking about? I've never seen that.
Never seen Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 sucks, is what he would say. So that was one of my favorite quotes. One of mine is from the trailer. I'm Tony Stark. I build neat stuff. I got a great girl. Occasionally I save the world. So why can't I sleep? And I'm like, I feel you, buddy.
Yeah.
For real.
I've been in stages in life where everything's been going right, and it's like I still can't sleep. I don't understand. So, who else?
Mine comes from where he's quoting the other guy, but it says we create our own demons, and he goes on to continue a little bit about that. But it made me think about the villains from a lot of the movies we've seen with Iron Man, and how he himself almost created most of those demons. Whereas the first one, he didn't necessarily create a demon. The guy was bad, but by his choices, that guy continued further down that track. The second one, same way, is not directly him creating the other guy. I'm horrible with remembering the guy's name. But the fact of, like, who created with his dad and the power, like, the resources and the whatever, the stuff they come up with. This one, the same way. He created the other guy because of the way he treated the other guy. Because I'll be honest, like, looking back at it, I felt so bad for that guy standing on the roof. Because he's like, go to the roof, I will meet you there.
Right.
and I just couldn't help. Like my heart broke for him. Like,
Right.
And it's like he probably wasn't a bad guy then. Like he really had, he could have been. I don't know, but he stood up there with high hopes, even looking down at his watch, like, well, maybe he's still coming.
Well, it gives some more credence to the theory that Tony Stark is his worst enemy.
Yeah.
He creates his own worst
Right.
enemy.
And then Ultron comes up before long too, and says the same way. For a long time, anything around him, he created a lot of this problem. So
Right.
and it's not necessarily was directing that towards that, but just to slow down and think about that was cool to me.
Yeah. Ashby?
So I really liked that's all you got, cheap trick and a cheesy one-liner. And he's like, sweetheart, that could be the name of my autobiography.
Yes.
And then I really love how Harley's trying to manipulate him into staying. And it's
Yes.
because he doesn't have a father figure.
Right.
And it's a serious concept, but Tony knows he can't stay, so he's making light of it. And, Harley's like, you have to stay because we're connected now. And he's like, okay. And then Harley's like, don't leave, I'm cold. And he's like, I know you're cold. You know how I know? Because we're connected. And then he just leaves him.
I felt like there was a lot of deep lines too, because he had, I don't know, this movie shows that emotional side of Tony, so you had that and that connection. You see that for the first time, him connecting with the younger kid that almost foreshadows what he's going to be to Peter.
Peter
coming
Parker,
up.
yeah.
And so to see that coming, one that was emotional that got me was when they thought Pepper was dead. Pepper's like falling out of the sky.
Right.
To me, Tony didn't necessarily get as emotional as I would think he would about like Pepper dying. But Killian, they're fighting. He says, let's face it, you didn't deserve her. I could have made her perfect. And Tony responded and said, you're right. I don't deserve her. But here's where you're wrong. She was already perfect.
Nice.
Yeah.
And where you're just starting to really see that about that, where so much has been about Tony through all these other movies and about himself. So.
I think that, you talk about he doesn't seem as upset about Pepper as he should. I think if you watch the way over and over again that RDJ plays Tony, we come to understand that probably because of the way his father treated him,
That's true.
he can't emote very well. And so Tony's anger and his sadness and his rage, it's always in the eyes. Like when you look at Civil War, the way he reacts to Steve and Bucky, and the way that he reacts in this movie when Pepper falls, Tony's never going to be the guy that just like crumbles or the guy that's able to weep openly, but you can see how upset he is, I think.
That's a good point.
And I think that's really I'd give RDJ credit for that for sure. So,
All right. Well,
Those
that's
deep dive moments.
that's a good transition to what worked the best.
once again, I feel like every time we do this, there's always one question of the 10 that I've not given any serious thought to. Like that I just was like, I don't know, and I just put something down. So for this, I put Pepper is a saint and a bad boss lady and just honestly the best. Why don't we give Pepper enough credit?
Honestly,
I
that was
don't
mine.
disagree.
No, mine was I loved how the relationship worked in this movie. And just where you saw more of that and her taking
Right.
more of that role, but it
Yeah.
wasn't just like she was an awesome like boss lady in general overall the whole movie.
Right.
But it's not just her sitting in an office this time. Like there's so much more about her.
Right.
So, like, one of my things was something you've already brought up, and that was the relationship between Harley and Tony, as it mirrors not only his relationship with Peter Parker and Iron Man later on, but also the first glimpse of Tony maybe even thinking about being a father.
That's true.
Moving forward, he having that conversation, with the kid. I think that might have planted the seed that hey, that might not be a bad thing someday, and then you
Right.
see it grow with Peter Parker. And
Sure.
so I thought that worked really well. And of course, Pepper Potts, yes, 100%.
And Harley is at Tony's funeral.
Yes, he is. He's the weird
In
kid,
Endgame.
in Endgame, yeah.
Yeah.
Who everyone's like, who's that? And it's like, come on, guys.
Right,
Did y'all
come
not
on.
see the other
Come
21,
on.
22 MCU
That's
films?
right.
Not to like skip ahead because we can go back to the questions, but that was my what moment. I knew it, but I've forgotten it. Where it's one of those things that all of a sudden, like in my mind, seeing it in the end game and knowing it, I was like, oh, that's the kid. But going back and watching this movie, all of a sudden putting all that back together and being like,
Right.
oh, wait a second. He's the kid that's going to end up at the funeral. And so
Right.
it caught me off guard in a second during the middle of the movie. I even like Googled it just to make sure. I was like, I am thinking right. But
I really
Right.
hope they bring Ty Simpkins back to be like Iron Lad or something.
I know there's like random speculation. But
Well, and I also see this is where Tumblr and fandom start running like
Fanon.
like a hamster wheel in my brain.
Yes.
Because what I love about Fanon is that it takes random choices made by directors and writers and tries to find a reason for them. So, Tony's funeral and Endgame, they're like, we should definitely stick Harley Keener, and they're like, let's get everyone in the MCU who's ever meant something to Tony or Tony's meant something to them, and let's stick them in this private funeral. And you're like, okay, well, that, like, it plays well. It's a homage. It's beautiful. It's moving, whatever. But from the perspective of like fact versus fiction, if you take away the fact that this is a fictional universe and you start thinking about the logistics behind that in the real world, Tony had to tell Pepper how much this kid meant to him at some point. This kid I met in Tennessee that you never met, that I gave a science lab to in his garage for helping me out, that I probably never got to really see again. Because I was so busy or life got in the way. And Pepper had to remember how much that kid meant to Tony enough in her grief to invite that grown child then to his funeral.
That's an excellent point, and I've never really thought of that before. I just figured like he saw it on the news. It's like, oh, Mom, I'm going out. I'm going to a funeral. And maybe they'll just let me in. I don't know.
This again is not me trying to jump questions, but like unanswered questions. That was something that crossed my mind. Was like, did he continuing his life in some way after that?
Right, maybe.
We saw how he did with Peter and how he
Right.
continued to reach out, continued to check in on him, and to know that he went all out and not just giving him all this, especially by the time by the end of this movie, realizing giving Pepper a giant teddy bear was not a great gift. And
Right.
There's so much more that's more important than things at that
Right.
point. So it made me wonder, if there's this whole backstory of him. I'm sure there's
Right.
some fanning about like him just going and hanging out with this kid.
Mm-hmm.
But it's even
All
better.
the fanning.
But either way, just coming
All.
back and like being, like you say, even if it went that route where he never really had a chance to go back, but just enough that he meant that much that he could talk to Pepper about it.
Right.
Because it made me wonder too, because being a car guy or whatever, like he has the lab, but he's also given him this like awesome Mustang and the same thing. And there's part of me that wanted to go back to Endgame. It's like, is there any shot of the parking lot where that's like, not like because it's a car and that's cool or whatever, but just like,
Right.
did
He
that kid
kept
still
it.
have it and he
Yeah.
drove it there to that scene? Now, I don't think
Right.
it ever shows any of that, but it just made me wonder.
Well, while we're at it, let's skip number 5 for now,
Okay.
and we'll go straight to number 6, unanswered questions.
Okay.
I don't have any, so
I had that one, and then my other one is this a Christmas movie?
Yes.
oh, I did have that.
100,000%
Is
yes.
this considered a Christmas movie?
That's the debate we still need to have, like, at Christmas
That's-
this year. But
yeah.
what makes a
What
Christmas
makes a
movie?
Christmas movie a
or
Christmas
what makes
movie?
a movie that happens at Christmas?
Like, because there are some people who are like
There's a difference.
hardcore, like Home Alone or like Die Hard is the big one. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
If there is a Christmas theme throughout the movie, then it is a Christmas movie.
I agree, 100%.
I don't
How
know.
hard is that?
100%.
what-
Because I would say if Die Hard's not a Christmas movie, then
Home Alone's.
Home Alone's not a Christmas movie.
Right. Home Alone is a movie about a kid who's being robbed. If
Yeah.
you take out Christmas, it's like you can't separate Christmas as a setting from a movie. Then it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
I don't know, though, because, like, would you sit down at Christmas time and be like, oh, man, let's pull out Iron Man 3? Like,
100%.
you totally would?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's
we
like
need
he
to...
doesn't even know who he's talking to.
Well, I'm
of course,
trying to
I watch
think in my
Iron Man
mind.
3 at Christmas.
Yeah, come on.
So we've got to change Ashby so she'll at least watch Batman Returns at Christmas then, too.
Let's not get
I
carried
said
away.
I watch good Christmas movies
Hey.
at Christmas.
So now you're saying this is a great movie. Great. We'll move forward.
Well-
Ashby loves Iron Man 3.
Welp. All right.
To be fair, Batman
Oh,
Returns...
sorry.
is
I
bad.
did have, what was it? Oh yeah. Pepper and Extremis. She's cured or she's stabilized, question mark. Because they never say what Tony does to help her. He just says, I'll take care of it. And a lot of fans theorized that he stabilized her, but that she still had the Extremis genes and that she would go glowy again in later movies. But we know she doesn't
Never
do that
did.
because in Endgame she shows up as rescue, not an
Right.
Extremis fireball. So,
I would say she's. I want to say she's cured, but
right.
was there a cure? And this is something I'm going to touch on in our fun facts. But Agents of Shield kind of explored. There
Right.
wasn't really a cure. It was just more
Right.
of a stabilization.
Right. So, I mean, but is in the stabilization that Tony found, is she no longer able to access?
yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know. Like, anyway,
I feel like if they
so-
were going to bring it back, especially at this point, how further along they are,
Yeah.
they'd have to do a lot of, in the movie, talking a lot about it to bring it back.
Yeah.
Right.
Versus just it being something that happened in Iron Man 3. Now, I'd say they couldn't do it, but at this point, I feel like it may probably just be stabilized. Especially, like you say, since that point, they just gave her a suit in the movie versus her having all these powers in the movie.
Right. All right. Nitpicks. I'm going to go ahead and get to my big one. The Mandarin.
Okay.
I go a little deeper on the matter in our Avengers headquarters teach us what you need to know section, but that really took me out of the movie. Like the whole, Ben Kingsley is the Mandarin, and he did such a good job, and then it turns out he's just a British actor, and this other guy who we know is already a villain. It just took me out of the movie, so didn't like that.
I think this is where I benefit from not being a comic book fan, because a lot of people, when we get to the social media shout-outs later, say, the Mandarin was an actual villain in the comic books, and he was actually terrifying, and it was really disappointing for this particular version of the Mandarin to play out like it did. But I didn't take any of that baggage with me because I didn't know. Right. So the way it played out for me, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool because it's like a head fake where you think there's one villain or maybe two villains working separately. Then you figure out they're sort of maybe working together. Then you figure out there's actually only one villain and this doopy guy who's just been wrangled into, And
I can see that. One of the things that, again, when I get to the main section is the Mandarin was considered to be like Iron Man's Joker.
Okay.
So, like, imagine if you're watching The Dark Knight.
Right. And
turns out Heath Ledger isn't really the Joker. It was actually Aaron Eckhart the whole time.
Okay.
And
I can see that. I get that.
That's where I think a lot of fans
disappointing.
Are, kind of disappointed in that creative decision.
I went into it. Honestly, I didn't read hardly any Iron Man comics growing up. I didn't know much about his villains anyway. So I didn't know. Like, I looked him up. It was like, who's the Mandarin?
Right.
But whenever it happened and it switched, it didn't really bother me. Rewatching it now, I loved how like serious the Mandarin character came across.
Right.
So it would have been cool to see how that would play out, knowing that he's more of like a terrorist type thing. Because it made me think of like Bane in The Dark Knight Rises, where he comes across as like this creepy, scary dude that can destroy about anything, and he stays that way through the whole movie. And like it's creepy and like stuff's crazy, but it didn't hit me in such a bad way. Now I would like to have seen a different way. Are you going to talk about All Hail the King?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'll leave that to you then.
Cool.
I don't want to steal that from you.
Cool, thanks. Any other nitpicks?
So I had one. I mean, obviously I've talked about it before, but the idea of mental illness being used as a plot device.
Yeah.
And that at least here, it seems to have been taken seriously. It happens more than once, and it's clear that Tony is dealing with everything that's happened to him. I think as movies build, you sort of forget that what's happening in the movies realistically is happening to one person over years and years. And so, by the time we get to this movie, you are thinking about Tony, sacrificing himself and going into the wormhole, but you're no longer thinking about what happened with him being poisoned in Iron Man 2, and you're no longer thinking about his time being tortured in Iron Man 1, but as a character, all those things would be building up for him as far as anxiety and PTSD and not being able to sleep. And so I at least appreciate that was finally playing out in his character, that he would have some kind of PTSD, but it's never resolved. He doesn't seek treatment. No one in his life tells him that he should maybe seek treatment or help. And I found this thing on Tumblr that was at least a more positive spin on it. And it says, I honestly think that the people who said this movie was boring don't understand how important mental health is. When I saw this movie when I was younger, it blew my mind. I used to get bad panic attacks. I wasn't telling my parents about them, and I didn't even know what they were. This movie is so important for Tony's character as well. I liked Iron Man, but after this movie, I loved him. Having a character you see yourself in changes everything. Sure, Tony was great before, but having a character audiences can connect to changes the game, really. Why would you care about a character if you can't connect to them? This movie really brought Tony to another level. It's what a lot of the other Marvel characters are missing. It's really only the writer's fault, not hating on any characters. Also, Harley, 1,000 out of 10, best Christmas movie. I could watch it all day, every day. So,
She's got support for her theory here.
Yes, so I have support for my theory.
All hail Tumblr.
But it's nice.
Just be careful. I ventured there last week.
These super. There's some fandom places on the internet.
There's a lot of fandom places. You got to be very careful.
Tread lightly.
Have a guide like I did.
Yes, have a spirit guide, if you will, through the realm of fandom. But yeah, it's nice to see that in other fans, that they took something away from this movie and from Tony's character, and being able to see him have weaknesses and deal with mental health, and that even superheroes have to deal with stuff like that.
That was one of my nitpicks too. And I think it's honestly, you brought it more to my attention the last time when you talked about it, to even think more about it.
That Steve Rogers thing, we're going to get on the couch, and he's going to.
Yeah.
It's like it's really been affecting me the past 3 weeks.
Right.
No, but I have, even with me, I have anxiety and depression issues as well, and so when you see that, you definitely do appreciate it. But the only thing I have is you see it a lot in the first half of the movie where it's very convenient to build his character,
Right.
and then the second half you don't really see it nearly as much. Like you said, they don't kind of resolve it, and not to say. I'm not hating on PTSD at all. I fully believe it's a very real thing, and people deal with it all the time. And I'm not saying that there's some cure-all that he just should have happened at the end of the movie and he's better for the rest of the movie. It's not. It's a continual life thing. But I just feel like they could have used it a little bit better, or at least tied it up a little bit better, or at least done something with it. But I am, to put the happier spin on it, I'm glad they did approach it and they did talk about it. Because it made me think about, too, because I was in elementary school and I used to think I had heart problems. And my mom took me to get heart scans and all these other issues, and nobody picked up on it back then. But I just had crazy bad anxiety. So it's something bad's about to happen, or we're about to have a test, and I didn't study for it. All I know, my heart feels like it's about to burst. And
right.
So, and they had they scanned my brain and all sorts of stuff when I was a kid, and but none of it ever brought up anxiety until I was in high school. But to realize that's a very real thing, and how you be in the middle of sleeping at night, and all of a sudden panic, wake up in a panic, or especially in the restaurant. I feel like that's a really good one. When that kid said something, it almost made the kid sound scary when he said it, but the kid didn't. It was just a very general question.
Right.
But the way he heard it, because of the way he feels inside, it hit him in such a heavy way.
Right.
That I love how they did that, and I love how he ran to his suit, to his safe place, and got it that way.
Right.
But the same way, for me, I would run to my bed and just, with the lights on, and just lay in bed, because it's better for me to have a safe place or whatever. But even the emotion we see in that was just neat.
Right.
So I'm glad they did it. It's just, I don't know. It probably could have been done
Looking
a
at
little
it
better.
as a plot device is...
Yeah. I had 2 more.
Okay.
First one is my thought throughout the entirety of this is shouldn't the Avengers have been called?
Yeah.
Not saying this is
Or
Right.
S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, somebody.
Because S.H.I.E.L.D. was still around. They hadn't
Right.
had the twist yet in Winter Soldier.
So my thought was, and I know it didn't have to happen, but it was just, and it's not me saying that the movie would have been better with it. It's not that. But just after we know that this is happening, this man comes across, he's not a threat to just where Tony lives. It's literally a nation. He's talking about taking out the president. All these things you would assume the Avengers are being involved with, especially once they think Tony's possibly dead. You would think somebody else steps in, Captain America comes back around, or somebody else comes and gets involved.
Right.
But nothing happens, and Tony comes back, and they're oh, great, you're not dead. The movie continues.
I think that's difficult. Once you have brought them together, which we did in Avengers in 2012, then that does become an issue. Then you have to have this believability where in their standalone films past the group films, what is believable that they would be dealing with it on their own, because I think you see the same thing in Winter Soldier later where you're okay, I'm sorry, you think the entire U.S. government has been infiltrated by Hydra, and you don't think to call Tony, maybe try to track down Bruce or Thor or anyone. You just
at least
decide to take it on your own.
At least in that, I can believe they didn't address, but I can at least see some logic behind. Well, all these people that I've trusted for years are secretly Hydra. I don't know who to trust at this point. So,
right.
You can make the argument that well, he didn't call Tony because he has no idea if Tony is Hydra or whatever.
Yeah, but I have a real problem with Steve Rogers being Tony Stark can be Hydra.
Yeah,
I just
I'm not saying that's the case, but I can see some logic behind that.
Right. Yeah. But I also have a real problem with believing that not a single Avenger showed up being oh my God, Tony's dead.
Yeah,
it's like they
the
saw it go across CNN and they were meh.
Yeah, the plane's getting hijacked, and Steve's well, I got this list I'm trying to catch up on.
Right.
Let me work on that first, then I'll go check on.
I'm only on the first Godfather, and I've got a few more I have to watch, and then I'll be there.
Yeah.
Turns out there's this guy, and he has a box of chocolates, and I've got to figure out what that means.
Right.
Yeah, he's learning his history through Forrest Gump.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. I learned lots.
Me too. Alabama football was really good.
Yes.
You know that? Yeah.
The only other one I had, and it was just a quick thing, was so far in other movies we've seen that Tony powers his suit through his reactor in his chest. And if that's still the truth with his stuff going forward, why did he have to power his suit with a car battery to get it back up working where it would fly or function the way it should. Because he still had the arc reactor at that point.
Right.
But like I said, it didn't make or break it. I'll be
Like I
honest.
said,
I was watching something
it's
online.
It's a nitpick. It's not an unanswered
That's a
question.
cheater.
but-
That's a cheating one because I was randomly looking online and somebody asked that. So.
Gotcha. Cool.
But it did make me think.
All right. Where does this movie fall in your rankings of MCU films or just Iron Man films in general?
Not my top 10.
Not in your top 10
time.
for the first time ever. And it's the one you own on DVD.
It is.
And it's not in your top 10.
I've only watched it once.
Fair enough.
Twice now.
I went back and looked.
I like the emotion of it. Don't get me wrong. Like I don't think it's bad, but it's
Of 23 films, it's number 16.
Ooh, I had number 17.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Fist bump. What?
Do you have a list now? It means I got to go back and make a
No,
list.
I don't have a list now. I just randomly selected 17.
Oh, okay.
nice.
Fair
I
enough.
knew it
I was
would.
about to
I
say.
knew that it would fall under 20 and above 15.
Yeah.
So
It is my second favorite Iron Man film. I know
it's also my second favorite.
I know
Iron Man
Hunter
film.
Batten loves Iron Man 2, but I don't.
I don't.
It's at the bottom 2 or 3
He's
for
got
me.
a social media shout out.
Yeah,
In a while that addresses some of
Iron
it.
Man's better. The first Iron Man's better, but
I mean, would have to go with the first Iron Man because it's the first Iron Man. And
yes, and it's the one that started it all.
Right, and it's got all the AC/DC. This one didn't have as much
Any.
AC/DC.
This didn't have any AC/DC.
and I
time
was
ever.
really
Ever.
devastated, honestly. But yeah, 2 is just kind of like there's. It would be 1, 3, 2 for
Yep.
me.
1, 3, 2.
So.
Okay. Random section. Is there anything you want to add? Favorite theory, a rabbit hole you went down? We're not gonna ask that question again. What Avenger you would be, or what Avenger would you say everyone else is? Because we did that 2 weeks ago.
I didn't really have a lot of fan theories or any kind of like crazy Tumblr stuff for this. I was very concerned about Dummy, so I'm really glad that they had a
Yes.
scene at the end where Tony went back and got him out of the ocean.
Him wearing his dunce cap.
Dummy is a very fan favorite in the Marvel fandom as far as like fan fiction goes, and he's peppered throughout fan fiction in
Nice
very
choice
like
of words there. He's peppered.
right fun in fun and creative ways. He's always
What's crazy how like
Yeah.
he doesn't have a face, he doesn't have anything, but you still feel emotion for
Yes.
him. Wearing that dunce hat, but
Yeah.
I was like, man, I feel bad. For
Feel
him.
so bad for,
Right.
for
Why
this
do you treat him
non-living
like crap?
being.
I know.
He doesn't even, it's not like a
I
fake
love,
robot walking
like,
around.
There are a
Like,
lot of people that don't like the way Tony treats him
Yeah.
because it's just like you feel for him when he's like, "Why are you wearing that hat, dummy?" And Dummy's like, you know, and it's like, "Oh, little buddy." I read a fan fiction one time where Steve starts sneaking into the lab in Stark Tower to like be nice to Dummy because Tony's so mean to him. So like Steve will go have conversations with
I'd
him.
love to see that.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
You have a favorite theory, rabbit hole?
The only thing I was going to do, and it's not necessarily a theory, it's just what we talked about, but all hail the king.
All right, so
Is that
we'll-
where you're going to talk about this now?
No.
Where are you going to talk about it?
In the Teach Us What We Need to Know.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll
About
skip
the
that whole
Mandarin.
thing
Okay.
then. Okay.
What's your what moment? The moment where you geeked out the most.
I already told mine, but it was just realizing again.
The kid.
I knew it going into it, but all of a sudden thinking more in depth and watching it through that mindset this time.
Mine was Pepper saving the day. Is it raining outside?
Is it raining?
It must
It
be
got really
raining.
dark.
It did. I hear
Okay.
water going.
Usually-
Yeah,
it's not dark
that was
quite yet.
funny.
But yeah, mine was Pepper at the very end, just kind of showing up when we thought she was dead and just like, oh, huh,
That was mine too.
nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad that like you have a reason because you said that, and then Ashby gave you like the worst look, but it was just trying to figure out if it's raining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a
It's
little
like,
concerned
wait a
because
second, like-
saw that look. I'm like, did I do something wrong?
Right.
That's
Am I
something.
referencing the wrong movie? Did I sing Hamilton, without realizing it? Because that could happen.
Yeah, I put Pepper manhandling a suit, trying to kill her, and then destroying Aldrich, which with it while literally glowing in yoga pants and a sports bra with her hair down and barefoot. Like Tony, who?
Queen.
Queen.
I wonder if the water's going to end up on the recording here because I'm hearing
Probably.
it really well.
I can hear it. Yeah, it's
All right,
pouring
so
rain.
I moved this section back to the 10 question section. Who won the movie? Pepper Potts.
okay. Yeah, I get that.
I mean, that's my answer.
Yeah.
Just because I'm, as I get older and more, I guess, learned, I really dislike the whole damsel in distress story that
Yep.
most superhero arcs try to go down.
Yep.
And I like that they kind of averted the expectation with Pepper. She doesn't need a man to save her. She doesn't need a superhero to save her. She can save herself and the man.
Right.
So that,
Even like, yes, at the end, but even when Tony puts the suit on her, she doesn't just lay there and let it protect her.
No.
She covers him.
Yep.
And she's like, I got you.
Yep.
You know?
And she
I
gets the
feel
other
like,
girl out too, like in that other scene.
right. And and then she's like, okay, once she knows that Tony is somewhere and he's alive, she's like, we're going to figure this out. Let's get in the car. Let's drive. Let's talk.
Yeah.
She's got a plan completely irregardless of whatever Tony's doing, you know? And I think that, I get that there are issues in the Marvel Cinematic Universe about women being allowed their own movies and their own stories. But I also think we should give credit where credit is due. And I don't think that Marvel ever plays into the damsel in distress. Like,
No, they don't.
all of the Marvel women are shown to be capable of themselves and of, like, saving the day and saving the men and doing whatever it takes.
Like, the only one that comes to mind, just thinking off, is in the next movie, Thor: The Dark World, where Jane has got the ether.
Right. And to be fair, she's human.
Yeah, so she's not Asgardian, so
right.
I mean,
and so, like,
so
she
that's not really her fault.
In
she's not
distress,
technically,
like
a
she
hero.
has a disease, technically, I guess.
Yeah.
But she's really smart, and I think that still plays out.
Absolutely.
You know,
DC's kind of guilty of this.
Yeah,
with
but
old Lois Lane. Anyway,
That's very much how that character was written.
Yeah,
and I'm not like
Right.
saying an excuse for that. Like, there's just, and she's had some moments. I'm not a big Superman person.
Yeah,
but no,
That's
that's just been her
why-
natural character forever.
that's why I'm really excited about the new Clark and Lois TV show with Tyler Hoechlin,
Yes.
and I can't remember the woman who plays Lois, but the Lois that she plays in the DC TV
Yes.
universe
Yes.
is
She's
kick
awesome.
butt. I mean,
Yes. Good job. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm trying.
I'm trying
so
to
hard.
praise you whenever. Yes.
But she definitely doesn't. She doesn't have a superpower, but like she backs Clark up. Whether he's Clark Kent or whether he's Superman. She's like, I got this. We'll handle it. I just really love how they've made that character so much more than I think she was written to be.
Definitely.
So
my answer was who won the movie? Pepper Potts.
okay, I like it.
Anybody else?
You go next.
Okay,
Most of the time it comes down between you two anyway. So I'm just going to see I've got two in my head. So
Okay.
like that's why
So
Can't play both sides.
I'm waiting to see what you're saying to see if either one relates to mine. Pepper's one
Okay.
of mine.
Fair
So
enough. Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
so I have Tony.
Oh.
Tony's my
Oh.
other one.
Oh.
So convince me which
Okay.
one because that's
So
literally my two.
Okay, so I put Tony because a
You're
lot
a
of people
film too
say,
late, by the way. It should have been Tony last movie. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay,
Anyway.
but I have a very specific reason.
Okay, go for it.
And it doesn't have to do with anything about like who he managed to like beat or whatever.
Whatever. Okay.
So I think a lot of people say Tony is nothing without the suit. But this movie proves that Tony is Tony without the suit. He is resourceful. He clearly has hand-to-hand combat training, if not maybe a lot of skill with a gun. This is one of the first movies since Iron Man 1 where we see him outside the suit as much as we see him in it, and the first time we really see him being a hero without the suit. I think that this movie redeems itself to me in its ability to remind us that the Iron Man suit isn't actually what makes Tony so great or even what makes him a superhero. His genius, his ingenuity, his unwavering determination, and his ability to see the promise in people like Harley is what makes him a hero. He just happens to also have an Iron Man suit.
I think I'm about to take my second L here. Cal?
I love how you looking at me and I was like, I'm trying not to make facial expressions.
No, but I know.
Well,
that was a well-reasoned argument.
Well, Tony was my first one I wrote down. But I will say, what you said last time made me think more about him this time, and in ways that I watched the movie thinking about this question this time, because it's not the same way we talked about last time. It's not just who was the biggest star of the movie. It was much more of a who got the outcome they wanted out of this, or the best outcome, who kind of won the outcome out of this. And so I thought about it in both ways. I did think about it with that, and I thought about it towards the end where he finally does have that freedom. What's that say?
I can't say that loud.
Either way, I got to that point where
Eric shot himself in the foot.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Yes.
yes,
Yeah, last time I shot myself in the foot.
you did, and it's one of those things that I couldn't help but think more about Tony in this one. Where it's the same way, like how I am, I wanted to pick somebody other than Tony since it's pretty much his movie, but it does, I would say, beyond the other movies, it's not so much. This one, it goes so much more, like you say, in depth. And who is Tony? because the world just assumes that he's Iron Man. He even says it, I am Iron Man, which he is. But he finally starts taking steps for self-care, which beyond, we've seen the mental illness he's dealing with. It makes you realize what he's dealing with. But then even at the end, where he finally, after all this time, goes and gets the pieces removed out of his body, like those metal pieces, the things that's been lingering over him. He even allows other doctors to do it, where we've seen before, like he wanted to handle everything and have Pepper help him or whatever. But he literally goes under. He puts his life in somebody else's hands to allow them to do that so he can better his body, better himself, so that he can be better for Pepper. I feel like Pepper's really strong in a second, place role in this, I think, because without her, I don't know if you would see that coming from Tony either. I don't think you would see the growth, so much, because he finally realizes the importance that she carries in his life and how much she means to him. And so he makes decisions based on that. But I just feel like as personal growth, you see him grow a lot as a character. Whereas I talked about in previous movies, like, he's not my favorite. I just don't really care because I'm more of the Cap guy that's, a good dude versus Tony could be a jerk. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure Tony can still be a jerk. We know he still can be. But at this point, you finally see that other side, that he's an actual human. He's an actual caring guy. And he's growing a lot. And he's been through a lot. It's easy to assume him being a jerk. But like you mentioned, too, like, his dad was never, he's technically had a dad that was there, but he didn't have a great loving dad that helped him with life. So, I don't know. So I picked Tony this time.
Man, I thought I had this one in the bag.
I'm not going to lie.
I really thought I had this one in the bag.
You started with Pepper, and I was like, okay, this is it, Pepper.
I knew y'all did not like Iron Man as much. I'm like, okay, I think I've got this one. And no,
I like to keep you guys on your toes.
Just a little bit. I'm not going first next time. I'm going to make you two go first. And
okay.
Maybe
I went first last time.
Oh,
that's fair.
True. That's true. Fair enough.
I ruled myself out.
All right, whatever. Tony wins the Infinity Gauntlet Cup. So, all right.
Okay. A famous man once said, "We create our own demons." Who said that? What does that even mean? Didn't matter. I said it because he said it. So now he was famous, and it was basically said by two well-known guys. I don't, anyway, I'm going to start again. Let's track this from the beginning. In every episode of our Running the Infinity Gauntlet series, we are taking a look at a vital piece of the MCU that helped shape the Infinity Saga. With that in mind, let's assemble together at Tony's Malibu mansion.
Oh, okay.
Eric, teach us what we need to know about the Mandarin.
To be fair, every one of these say Avengers headquarters because they're part of the Avengers. But,
yeah, that's fair.
But I like the Malibu headquarters. Good thinking there.
Way to think.
Yeah.
So the Mandarin, as I discussed earlier, was a big deal to a lot of comic book fans before this movie came out. Why? Well, every superhero needs an archenemy to fight against and form the conflict of memorable stories. Batman has the Joker, Captain America has Red Skull, and Iron Man has the Mandarin, created by Stan Lee and artist Don Heck. The Mandarin is Tony Stark's greatest foe. Through a mixture of science and alien technology, the Mandarin has aimed to conquer everything in his path. In many ways, he's a dark reflection of Iron Man in that he utilizes technology to achieve his goals for a malevolent purpose. There's your word of the week, by the way.
That's a good movie.
That's a good word.
The character is known for using alien rings that grant him a variety of abilities. In a write-up on the character from Comic Vault, we learned that the Mandarin was born into a rich family, with his father being the richest man in pre-communist China. His parents died when he was young, and the Mandarin was raised by his paternal aunt, who instilled a bitter worldview into him. The family fortune was spent on training him in science and combat. By the time he was an adult, the Mandarin had no money left, and as he couldn't afford to pay the taxes on his ancestral home, the Chinese government evicted him. So looking for a way to avenge himself, Mandarin traveled to the Forbidden Valley of Spirits, where he came across a crashed ship containing the skeleton of an alien from the planet Maklu 4. Mandarin studied Makluian science and mastered the 10 rings he found within the ship. Combining his new abilities with his natural intellect, the Mandarin conquered China and set out to dominate the rest of the world. Mandarin's first confrontation with Iron Man happened when he tried to use Stark's weapons against the American government. Iron Man investigated, managed to stop him, igniting a rivalry between the two of them, and this led to various schemes with the Mandarin managing to outwit Iron Man and vice versa. And the two of them have been locked into a technological arms race, with each developing new inventions with varying results. The Mandarin's approach to life can be summed up as him believing that the feudalism of yesterday is simply the capitalism of today. He continually tested Iron Man in order to see if he's a worthy foe, as well as to justify his own thoughts on capitalism. However, Mandarin possesses a strict code of honor. For example, he challenged Iron Man to a duel, for the control of the Hong Kong branch of Stark Industries. When he lost, he promised not to interfere in Stark's business any further, and he kept his word. He has 10 rings. I'm not going to go over what the 10 rings do because we may see that in an upcoming MCU film, which I'll talk about in a second. But the Mandarin has developed a strong psychic connection with those rings, and he doesn't need to wear them to use their power. There is no doubt that the Mandarin is Iron Man's greatest enemy because of his powers, his intelligence, ruthlessness, which is why people were super stoked to see him referenced in the MCU from the very beginning. The Mandarin is referenced in the first Iron Man film via the name of the terrorist group known as the Ten Rings, who briefly appear again in the 2010 movie Iron Man 2 and the 2015 movie Ant-Man. Sir Ben Kingsley appears in promotional material for Iron Man 3 as the Mandarin, implied to be the Ten Rings terrorist group leader. As we talked about earlier, the film reveals that the Mandarin terrorist persona was adopted by AIM founder Aldrich Killian to mask illegal genetic activities, while the idealized image is actually drunken British character actor Trevor Slattery. Inspired by the character, and Malin director Shane Black specified that Killian was the intended MCU version of Mandarin as signified by the dragon tattoos on Killian's chest, while Slattery is supposed to portray the idealized terrorist persona image as Killian's proxy. In interviews, Kevin Feige suggested that Killian built this idea from legends previously heard, and he hinted that the audience should believe in the strong possibility that there may be a comic book accurate depiction known within the MCU. Ben Kingsley reprises his role in the Marvel one-shot short All Hail the King, in which Trevor Slattery is imprisoned in Seagate Prison following Iron Man 3. He is interviewed by Jackson Norris, who reveals that Killian based the Mandarin on a powerful historical figure of the same name. Revealing himself to be an agent of the Ten Rings, Norris kidnaps Slattery on behalf of the real Mandarin, who Norris states is insulted at Killian and Slattery's use of his name. The real Mandarin will appear in the upcoming film Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and will be portrayed by Tony Leung Chiu-Wah. Hopefully the right way this time.
Nice.
So, yeah, there's
Wow.
a
Great job.
comprehensive view on the Mandarin.
I'll be honest, until this week, I never knew that existed.
There you go.
And so I
Research.
watched it.
That's why we have this
Yeah.
this section. We can teach people what they need to know.
That's right.
Because I was Googling it, just even like Mandarin, and it came up. It's like, All Hail the Kings. I was like, what is that? And all of a sudden, I went to YouTube, and you can't technically watch the full thing on YouTube, but you can get your best
It's on
idea.
Disney Plus, though.
Is it on Disney
Yeah,
Plus?
the one shots are on Disney Plus.
Okay, so I didn't know
Oh,
that.
nice. Okay.
I wish they would do more one shots. I watched a funny thing happen on the way to Thor's hammer. There's just
Okay.
a nice little thing for Coulson. But yeah, they're all on
So
Disney
I didn't
Plus.
watch that.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know it was on
I need
Disney
to watch
Plus.
those. Yeah.
good stuff.
But it does look like it's going to be cool. Just the brief. I watched it. YouTube had one of those illegal, like, 2 times as fast versions that you could catch the end
and
of
you only
it.
see like a third of it. And
Yeah, they're talking really fast,
Yep.
and all that. And so, like,
elevated pitch and
but just to see, like, I'm glad that they're going to continue with this character, though. They're going to take Kingsley from this to the other one.
Yes.
Because even in prison, he's still regarded as it's a mighty villain.
Mm-hmm.
He's walking around, and instead of him getting beaten up for being some fake terrorist, they're like, do it again, man. Do it again. Do the voice. Do the voice. Like, and still, they're like, he's pretty much running that prison. Like, everybody loves him. And so he's still doing his own thing. So to know that at some point he's going to have to face the real dude who he's been, pretending to be all this time. I don't know. It makes me excited to actually see that movie now. Not like we've said before, Marvel puts it out, I'll go see it. But
That's also a really creative way to not be like, yeah, we screwed up. We're going to scrap
Yeah.
that and start over.
I thought about that too, because you were talking about fan fiction earlier about like what people do or fandom and how they would write it out, probably what
Yeah.
would happen. And I do think this came about after, and they saw kind of the uproar that they put this out afterwards. So we're like, okay, well, how can we fix this? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, let's do this one shot, and then 10 years from now we'll put out a movie with the
Yeah.
real Mandarin, and after it all
Yeah.
dies down.
There was a meme that I found a few months ago that was like, y'all remember that crazy Avengers fan fiction where, and then they just give the summary to Endgame, and they're like, that was wild.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Okay.
That's funny.
Don't.
It's okay.
I'm hot. I'll hurt you.
No, you won't. See? Not hot.
Am I going to be okay?
No. You're on a podcast with us. Nothing will ever be okay. But I had this 20 years ago when I was drunk. We can sort it out. Just like we can sort out 6 of our favorite observations and insights from Iron Man 3 by slipping on that Infinity Gauntlet. Kyle, you go first.
Yes. This may be obvious to everybody else, but I missed it until I was looking up fun facts. But Dr. Wu, who's introduced to at the very beginning at that party, first off, he's introduced by the other guy, and I'm horrible with names, but the one that he was in a cave in Iron Man 1 with.
Jensen?
Jensen,
Yes,
yeah.
Jensen reappears where he talked about, I met you once here, but you're probably too drunk to remember. Well, he tries to introduce him to Dr. Wu, and he just oblivious, whatever. Dr. Wu is actually the doctor at the end of the movie that's taking the metal parts out of Tony's heart.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
nice.
So the same doctor he ignored at the beginning of the movie is the one that's
Right.
fixing him.
Nice save. Number 2. Both of my fun facts involve Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The president in...
Of course they do. I'm not caught up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I'm probably about to have something spoiled for me. It's fine.
No. Nothing's spoiled for you.
Okay.
I say, I finished Titans now. Deathstroke. He's got
It might spoil some stuff for Kyle, but it won't spoil anything.
Okay.
The president in Iron Man 3 is Matthew Ellis, who was targeted for assassination in this movie. President Ellis makes an appearance on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3 and Season 4, working secretly with S.H.I.E.L.D. on several plot points involving Inhumans, life model decoys, and dealings with Russia. Number 3.
Interesting. Okay. So 2 of my 3 have to do with fun appearances.
Well, we only get 2 tonight.
Oh, that's right. We get 2. Okay. So I can just roll 2 appearances into one.
Yep, there you go.
So Lyndon Ashby, one of my favorite actors for obvious reasons. Plays the head of the command center when Air Force One is taken over. I know him best in his role as Sheriff Stilinski on Teen Wolf. Ooh. And then when Tony walks out of the hospital from visiting Happy, a blonde reporter is waiting to interview him and is the first reporter who rushes to ask him a question. This woman is played by Kim Holderness, who is an actual former news anchor. She and her husband Penn live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and are social media influencers and bloggers who, along with their kids, became household names with their 2013 viral video, Christmas Jammies.
Very nice. Yeah. Number 4.
I'm going to save one to the end. That's just kind of a throwaway one.
This is your last one.
No, I'm saying in case nobody else says it, that
Right.
we'll just make a statement instead.
Fair enough.
But
Okay.
let's
We'll
see.
allow it.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
the brain trust allows it.
This
And
is
so do I.
so as any other Marvel movie, there's mid-credit scenes or end-credit scenes, and this one has those. But this is the first one where it doesn't tell you what's happening next, or at least allude to what's to come. You just literally show up, and Mark Ruffalo's listening, or Bruce Banner's
Like the whole movie was a story told to
Bruce
Bruce,
Banner.
Right.
who
that
fell
he
asleep.
slept through.
Yeah.
So, but it didn't give you an idea of what was coming ahead. That was my second fun fact.
Nice. Number 5. Extremis was a central key plot point in the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., specifically in the pilot episode. Extremis was also used as the main component of a serum designated by the clandestine program Centipede that combined it with gamma radiation, a variation of the super soldier serum, and technology from the Chitauri for injection in an effort to create their own super soldiers. The Extremis component was stabilized when Centipede recruited Chan Ho Yin, also known as Scorch. Before his death, they were able to drain some of his blood as the platelets prevented him from being burned by his own pyrokinesis. Mike Peterson, after recovering from being knocked out by an icer, discovered that he was now stabilized. The Centipede serum became a recurring plot point for villains in the first season. An upgraded version of the serum was created using the cells of Agent J.Z. Johnson, a.k.a. Quake's mother, who was an inhuman with the ability to regenerate cells and heal. John Garrett, a Hydra agent undercover at S.H.I.E.L.D., was given this serum, which kept him alive but did not give him powers because he was mortally wounded prior to this. In Season 5, a new version of the Centipede serum was created with the intention to heal Phil Coulson from his original fatal injuries sustained in the Avengers movie, but it ends up being used on Quake, who gained enhanced abilities to take out General Glenn Talbot, who, long story short, was infused with gravitonium. Another Season 1 callback, and oh my goodness, this show is so awesome. Go watch it.
Yes.
Great
Yes.
job.
All right, number 6.
So this is kind of a downer, but I thought it was really interesting, and I have a quote on my phone. Hold on, because I couldn't make it part of my script. Okay, this movie was released very soon after the Boston Marathon bombings, and more than one critic pointed out the coincidental but still poignant in its timing use of a terrorist plot and yet another Hollywood movie as we continue to fight terrorism both domestically and abroad. So it says, the only significant difference between Iron Man 3 and others of its type is that it is opening a few weeks after the Boston Marathon bombing. It's an unhappy coincidence that might not be worth mentioning if Iron Man 3 didn't underscore just how thoroughly September 11 and its aftermath have been colonialized by the movies.
Very
I thought
nice.
that was interesting.
Very good.
Critics were not very kind to this movie.
No.
Did you have an extra?
I did. This was just
Bonus
fun.
content, people.
This whole movie was, or most of it, was filmed in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we live, under the name Caged Heat. I had forgotten about this, but I remember when it happened because I was like, I wonder if I could go see Iron Man if I drive to Wilmington.
Parts of it were also filmed in Charlotte.
Nice.
Yeah, that's why I'm wearing this North Carolina Love shirt, because this was after one of the hurricanes. A lot of celebrities that have filmed in Wilmington, where it was so affected by our last hurricane, did these shirts as a way to raise money for the
That's
area.
cool. That is cool.
Yeah.
That's why we're glad to have Ashby here.
Yeah.
She makes us aware of things.
Aware.
We'll get shirts next time. Like, we want to be in on that.
Next time there's a hurricane, she can let us know where to buy shirts from.
She also
right.
knows about popular things happening in our county.
Yes.
So, like, when Bad Grandpa is filming again in Johnny Knoxville.
Oh, I knew
downtown
about that
Selma,
one.
I'm at work, and, like, I get a heads up to head down and see Johnny Knoxville before I'm on my way home.
I think I was still working at the drugstore then, so I knew about that. So.
Nice.
Well, bad news.
Oh, boy.
The film tax credits for North Carolina aren't what they once were, so we don't get things filmed here a lot anymore until the state decides to fix that so we can get big budget blockbusters again. Which is why the Outer Banks TV show was not
That's
filmed
true.
in the Outer Banks because it's too expensive to film in North Carolina.
Wow.
I'm going to get off my soapbox.
Good thing is, like, anything Johnny Knoxville does for the most part is not big budget. So he still
That's
makes them.
true.
Who knows?
He's like, I'll show up. Just give me
We
$5
still
and
get,
buy me a hot dog.
We still get indie flicks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like there was a movie I meant to watch it that was filmed a few years ago in North Carolina called Ashby. And
Oh, wow.
every time I see the North Carolina film guy, I still give him crap about it. I'm like, you still haven't given me my residuals for that movie.
So when when's the
about to
next
say.
movie night?
You let us know when your house
We
is
should watch
ready.
it.
We'll go watch Ashby.
I was thinking like Psych the movie too, but
Also that.
Yeah, I mean that comes out in a couple weeks, so it won't be ready. But
I'm so excited.
yeah, me too. Are you excited, Kyle?
I am. I was going to just, like, razz you about your house some more. But it's like, no, you take your time.
I will.
Yes.
That's fair.
I will.
So, as Christmas morning began, my journey was at its end. You start with something pure, something exciting, and then comes the mistakes, the compromises. We create our own demons,
Yes.
as promised. I got this podcast sorted out,
Wait,
took a little
what?
tinkering, but then I thought, why stop there?
He got it sorted out.
I did. Of course, there are people who say progress is dangerous, but then I bet none of those idiots ever had to live with a low microphone volume. We're fixing that. And now, neither will I. Let me tell you, that was the best sleep I'd had in years. So if I were to wrap this up tight with a bow or whatever, I guess I'd say my armor. Yeah. It was never a distraction or a hobby. It was a cocoon. And now I'm changed man. Or I'm a changed man as well. I'm changed man and I'm a changed man. You can take away my house, all my tricks, my toys. One thing you can't take away, this is the What podcast, and these are our social media shout-outs.
What?
That
That's our song.
that was inspired.
That was great. That was inspiring.
I had a good writer.
Shane Black.
Yes.
Yep.
I called him up. I was like, hey, are you busy? I need a couple lines. All right. You guys tuned in a lot this week. We put it out there on Facebook and on the Instagram. Facebook thoughts and memories, kind of. I had two different posts. The first one was more sort of, what did you think of this movie? What were your thoughts? Tim Inman, who is the lead singer for The Separate, who produced the song that we use for our podcast.
Heartbeat, heartbeat.
Can you feel my heartbeat?
Heartbeat.
He
And she
also-
says she can't sing.
I can't.
He also played guitar on the song. Random spinoff before we get to that. Do you remember, did you ever listen to G105 growing up with, like, Kentucky Kristen was there?
Yeah.
Bob
It
of the
was like,
Showgram.
Kristen's Hollywood Head, like the whole theme song
Yes.
they have for that.
Yeah.
Separate did that.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So, anyway, he said it was filmed here in NC. My good friend and pastor's wife was doing a lot of work as an extra at the time and was selected to be one of the nurses/doctors doing the arc reactor removal surgery at the end of the movie. She's the one putting the mask on him, and he said in this scene. So the point where he's getting the gas mask on, she's the one that did that. Amanda Gaddis said, Pepper Potts is a queen. I have no idea how Tony
Yes, girl.
survived before her. Ethan Brantley said, I was so super excited to see all about the Mandarin, and they ruined him and turned him into a joke. I was very sad because the Mandarin in real life is a force, laugh out loud. I did really like the human tissue robot fiber things, though. I don't remember what they were called, but they were bad to the bone. Ethan also says, I responded back talking about how I think they're going to hopefully do more with him in the future, and he said, me too. I don't really understand what they were going with that character. Ethan also brought it to my attention this afternoon that The Mask was originally a comic book. So the movie with Jim Carrey from like the
Yeah.
90s was a comic book. We didn't know that.
Okay.
I had to Google it. Also, Chris Rhodes says, I remember seeing this movie in the theater, but I don't really remember it. The most vivid memory was at the time was I thought the movie and the characterization of the Mandarin was meh and disappointing. Hunter says, I dislike Guy Pearce. I have no idea why. Facebook, who won the movie?
So basically, he's like, I hate that guy.
He does a little bit more about
I
it.
guess.
But he just dislikes Guy Pearce, but he doesn't know why. We posted today, said, who won the movie, to see what everybody else thought. Chris Rhodes said, though not a character, I believe the suits won the movie because they were the reason Tony became so obsessive and a driving factor going into Age of Ultron. Rickie Liles tuned in today. Rickie typically doesn't respond to anything, and we do this at his house, but he responded today. Pepper Potts did. Finally got to walk in Tony's shoes.
Thank you, Rickie, for agreeing with me.
Yeah.
Hunter Batten said, Iron Man 2 won. So clear that out. You missed it. He said Iron Man 2 won because it was elevated to second best Iron Man movie instead of the worst.
Agree to disagree.
The hate.
Yeah.
I was thinking about
The
earlier.
hate flowing
The
through
audacity.
Whenever y'all were ranking your movies at that point earlier, that's all I could think about was Hunter's response. Devon/Jenny Varnum says, and I'm thinking
Hey,
it's Jenny.
they're back on Facebook?
Yeah, but
Yay.
they've been, but I didn't know if it was like a family thing, so I didn't add them, but I got added this week.
Oh, cool.
Pepper Potts won Iron Man 3. I mean, really and truly, she saves the day. So at least Jenny agrees with you.
Well,
We don't disagree fully.
I don't
I
disagree
don't.
with you.
Like,
You know.
it's just if they could share it. Well, they get married and have kids. Sure, they can
Right,
share that.
exactly.
Put it on the mantle. They'll have that.
They get a llama
Yeah,
or an alpaca.
just not a giant bear. Never
Something like
again.
that. That's right.
Instagram.
It's a
Hunter-
bunny.
I'm
Yeah.
trying so hard not to go down
Sorry,
so
not
many
fair.
rabbit holes here.
Get it? It's a
The
bunny.
bunny
Rabbit
hot.
holes.
Yes.
Great job. Instagram, the only one we had was Hunter, who did his big explanation. Hunter says, I
Terrible.
wasn't a fan of it when it came out and still not fond of the Mandarin twist and Guy Pearce. Detonating the suits at the end felt like it was a waste of a lot of potential classic Iron Man variants that could have been cool in other flicks. Makes less sense when going into Ultron because he's getting a freaking drone squad acting as world police. Robert Downey Jr. is great, and I like Shane Black, but this MC movie just didn't do it for me. I miss Iron Man 2's Justin Hammer. Sam Rockwell rules. Bring him back. He's also in... Sam Rockwell is in All Hail the King.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Justin Hammer. Yes.
That was who you were. You know, when you said you were bad at names, you were talking about Justin Hammer and
Yes.
Obadiah Stan.
Yeah.
is who
Yes.
you were talking
Them
about.
fellas.
Yeah.
Them fellows. Cool. All right.
Well,
Anything
I have
else?
another line because I literally just...
No, you're good. You're good. I have the last line.
Okay.
All right, friends. And thank you, by the way, for listening. But something about just, getting it off my chest, putting it out there in the atmosphere instead of holding this in. I mean, this is what gets people sick, Wow. I had no idea you were such a good listener. To be able to share all my intimate thoughts and my experiences with someone that just cuts the weight of it in half, It's like a snake swallowing its own tail. Everything comes full circle. Big thank you to Rickie Liles, Tim Hutchinson for all their contributions on today's episode. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did, that you're as pumped for the rest of this journey into MCU films and other pop culture entities as we are. Next month, we have to, because we're doing these in order, we will be discussing Thor: The Dark World. It gets better after that, I promise.
I'm having high hopes for that movie. I feel like I've only seen it once, and it was a long time ago, so I'm hoping to go back and be like, I
I'm
kinda
hoping
enjoyed
it got better after they kind of went back and redid some of it in Endgame.
I'm gonna try to elevate it. I'm gonna try to
I'm going
bring
to come in and praise this movie.
the.
We'll do another movie night because I've got this one so we did Iron Man 3 here near the beginning of July, but I think Thor: The Dark World was at the end of August, so we got
Okay.
6 weeks.
Okay.
So you got time. That's
So
a
we
goal.
got time. We can watch it movie
I will
night.
literally dress as Natalie Portman.
Okay, deal. I'll dress as Thor.
And I'll dress as... Why can't I remember? her
Heimdall.
name?
Oh,
Oh,
no.
what's her name?
Sif, Lady Sif.
Lady Sif.
Oh, I don't even know.
Darcy?
Movie. Yeah, Darcy.
Oh, Darcy. That's man,
Oh,
Darcy.
no.
Fan
I'll
fiction Darcy
Yes.
is the best Darcy. Oh man.
And
I'll bring fan fiction Darcy.
next week, be
That could
sure
be
to.
dangerous.
That could be very dangerous. Make sure you get not E and not M. Are those the two?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Stick with T and
G.
G. Yes.
Yeah. Good job, you're learning.
I'm
Young
learning.
Padawan.
Yes.
You have a lightsaber before you know
I
it.
can't wait. Next week, be sure to join us as we discuss our favorite multiplayer/sleepover video games. Are you going to be here for this one next week?
Not now.
Oh.
But I actually legitimately won't be here the week after that. So
Where do you want to switch?
maybe we should switch.
We might want to switch.
What's that one?
What's
Look it
the
up.
week? What's
I'll
the
look
week
it up
after
real
next?
quick.
Because I'm going to be on vacation. Sorry, guys.
Where are you going?
Where are you going? We'll go
Asheville.
with. Oh, they got places to record there.
Yeah,
Let's see.
going back, hanging out with some of my.
Star
Asheville
Wars
peeps.
episode 1's the week after that.
Oh yeah, so we'll just switch.
We'll switch. So
'Cause
we'll
I
do
can
Star
talk
Wars.
about Star
We'll
Wars.
do Star Wars episode 1 next week, and then
Okay.
we'll do multiplayer sleepover video games the week after that. Okay.
I'm gonna have to watch.
Maybe we can get Chris Road.
Chris Road. Yeah, I was trying to think of who we could get.
Yeah,
Because
that'd
there's
be
a lot of
good.
video game people that
Yeah.
wanted to talk. So
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm
Chris.
gonna have to watch sad child Anakin Skywalker this weekend? So
he's
depressing.
not sad yet, is he?
No, yippee!
Yeah, he's pretty happy.
He's pretty happy.
He's kind of a sad kid. I
Misa
think.
Jar Jar Binks.
I mean, his mom dies. Oh, sorry.
No,
Spoiler alert.
that's episode 2. Oh. All right. Until next time.
Oh, Jar Jar Binks is in the first one.
Yeah, he
Ugh.
is. Now that's pod racing.
Ugh. Okay.
But Duel of the Fates. I mean, great music and stuff. Think positive.
I mean, Obi-Wan
Put
Kenobi.
your positive pants on.
Just like
Pretend
hot,
like this is Thor of the Dark World and be positive.
hot Obi-Wan Kenobi, I suppose.
You and McGregor.
That's true.
And,
Not Jesus.
And hot, what's
Obi-Wan
his other
Kenobi.
name? Also, maybe
Qui-
I just have a thing for guys that look like Jesus. Wait a second.
Turns out you just love Jesus.
just love
Turns out I
Jesus.
just love Jesus, but like in a
Just like I know.
non-biblical way.
And thank you again for joining in to the What the What podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
No, she didn't. No, she didn't.
There it was. The moment I ruined
Who had
everything.
7:56 on July the 9th?
Oh God.
I want to say, but I would make it worse, so I'm not.
Okay, you know the ugly crying we tried not to do when we watched Hamilton last week? It's getting there. Oh my goodness. Until next time, stay as cool as the other side of the pillow. We'll see you next week.
What the
What the
what?
What podcast. Bye.
Bye.